All right, welcome back, friends. I am, of course, Tony Toon. I am the great and glorious Walrus.
And welcome back. This is Leanne Palmer, and I am your sparkly, glittery, shiny fairy.
Woo. I'm shiny, damn it.
I am. Just wait till we get our tech up and they can actually see the glitter on the video screen.
Yeah. We had recorded a pretty long conversation last week, but then we had technical difficulties and
getting it uploaded.
Things failed all around, so I blame myself. Anyway, it's probably my fault. It's all good.
So yeah, we're working on getting better tech to get video.
But speaking of technology, today's topic is tech censorship. There's a couple things I want to talk about.
All right, Tony, so let's hear what you have to say.
All right. I think it's pretty obvious what's going on as far as tech censorship. Like I said, I haven't worked in journalism, but I've kind of have a foot in the community. And I think Tim Pool is 100% correct. And if you're not watching Tim Pool, you need to watch Tim Pool. So basically, what is happening? It's around 2010, maybe a little bit earlier. Places like The Verge, Vice, they figured out that they could make money abusing Facebook's algorithm by making rage bait. One of the things they did was they started talking a lot about police brutality. Even though, if you look at the numbers, it's really not as big as an issue as was being made out to be. And that's not saying it's not a bad thing when it happens, or that there isn't corrupt cops, because there obviously are. But they figured out that they could make money through rage bait, and that's just an example. There's also, and conservatives did this a lot with Obama's birth certificate and all that stuff, the websites that pushed that. A lot of people made a lot of money really quick. Facebook, a couple years back, realized that they were tearing the country apart.
Yeah, I would agree that has a lot to do with the division in the country.
Well, just social media in general, not pointing out Facebook, but.
Well, no, I mean Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, social media in general.
So they changed their algorithm. Not only that, people kind of caught wise to their game. Especially when they started to move towards this woke mentality. People kind of caught wise to the game. They lost interest, and they stopped clicking. Less clicks, less views, less ad money. Topple that with the rise of YouTube. How easy it is, just what we're doing. We're just sitting here with my iPhone talking, and we hope you're entertained, but I think we probably offered better analysis than you get on CNN.
For what we understand of the topics, yeah.
So...
Because by no means do we claim to be experts on any of this.
No, not at all. But you can listen to someone on YouTube. It's a real person. You can build a community. You got someone on CNN or Fox News or any of these old legacy networks. There's not really a community built around the personality. You kind of Tucker Carlson, Greg Gutfeld, they do kind of get a cult of personality, but they don't have a loyal fan base, I would say, like people who are fanatically loyal to them.
Not like Dan Rather used to have, or
Walter Cronkite.
Walter Cronkite or Barbara Walters or...
Yeah. But and I'm not saying it's impossible to establish that type of connection on television, but it's a lot easier for YouTube.
Right.
Because you're with the creator, you can post comments. He or she can respond. He may even make a video talking about your comment, or whatever.
Right. There's a conversation that happens.
Right. So couple that with the legacy media not being able to compete. You look at this through CNN's ratings. They'll keep laying people off. MSNBC, of course, a lot of that has to do with the Russian Gate conspiracy theory. All of it's collapsing. There's no money in these big media companies anymore. They are lashing out in all directions, trying to bring their competitors down so that they can compete again. I think this is exemplified. This New York Times article, the making of a YouTube radical. Caleb, I forget his name or whatever. The New York Times made a front page opinion piece about this one guy who watched YouTube videos and they said he was a radical. Well, number one, the story debunks itself if you read it. It's the guy starts off as a traditional conservative. He listens to these ethno-state people. He doesn't agree. I've listened to these ethno-state people. I don't agree. I would never agree with the idea of an ethno-state. You can't stop people from interacting with each other. That's the biggest problem. It's just not feasibly possible, and I just don't care. A big thing. But then he turns kind of into a left-winger. So he rejected the extreme white nationalism, and now he's a left-winger. So they're trying to say that YouTube is radicalizing people to the left,
creating. But
he framed it in that he was creating a alt-right radical, and it frustrates me because in 2016, when I dropped out of college the first time, I was really down in the dumps. I was lonely. I didn't have a lot of friends up in college. In fact, I had no friends, quite frankly. A lot of that was my fault. A lot of that was I was just older, more mature. I had a rough time connecting with these kids. But I would be in classes, Sociology 101. They would put forth this progressive propaganda. Racism, prejudice plus power, instead of just believing that your own race is superior due to your characteristics. Believing that society was a white male patriarchy instead of, life sucked and people just trying to live.
Right. Basically turning down the idea of reverse racism.
Yeah. And coupled that with I was in the journalism pipeline. Coupled that with people, anytime I would speak out, a lot of times my ideas would be outright rejected. I would be insulted, or a lot of times they just flat out fail me. Like what happened with my economics report. Even though it was well researched, and I won't get into it. And anytime I would try to talk to someone about this, especially most of them were on the left, being in a college campus, of course, it's all in your head, it's not that big a deal, or I was a racist or a misogynist. So, and it's kind of a funny story. 2016 Ghostbusters comes along. They're writing all these articles about how misogynistic the trolls are. And I'm sitting there thinking, there's no way in hell people are hating this movie just because it's full of women.
Okay. I kind of liked the movie.
But
I like it for different reasons.
I saw the movie because no one was going to tell me what to think about it. It's a 6, maybe a 7. It has its moments. It's not as bad as everyone thinks. And it's certainly not as good as the original. But
that I will give you. It is nowhere near as good as the original.
Yeah.
And the comments that Chris Hemsworth was in there just for eye candy, yeah, he was in there just for eye candy. I'll be honest.
Well, I mean, obviously. I mean, come on. Why do you think I'm going to go see Men in Black International?
I know, right?
But it comes along, and I'm like, okay, there's no way. So I look up the 2016 Ghostbusters trailer. I'm looking at it, and yeah, there's a few people don't like it because it's women, but it's not overwhelming. Most people are talking about the special effects, that it doesn't look as funny, bringing up legitimate criticisms. And then I discover, I forget, it was Mundane Matt. And Mundane Matt has his own problems now. I wouldn't follow him. He's kind of gone off the deep end. But he was sitting there ranting about Ghostbusters and why he didn't like it. And I'm just like, this guy's not misogynistic. He just didn't like the movie. And so that led me to places like Sargon of Akkad, Dave Rubin. And I finally saw people who were on the left who were talking about these issues. I don't agree with everything they say. I have my opinions, they have their opinions. But they were at least talking about these issues. And I just thought to myself, because I was really down in the dumps, because I was sitting there thinking, holy shit, there's only one way this ends. This is going to end with,
it's not going to end nice.
If not armies having at each other with terrorist attacks.
And guerrilla warfare.
It's the only way that would end. And I'm like, oh my God, there's a chance that we're not going to kill each other. Thank God. And so it was a huge relief off my shoulders. It was just like, it gave me hope. And I will admit, people like Stephen Molyneux, I've watched a few of his episodes. He does come dangerously close to being a white nationalist. I hate to say he is, but just the videos I've seen, the way he talks, it does kind of seem like he's...
I haven't seen him, but what I get you trying to say is that he's skirting that line.
Yeah, he's skirting the line. And as far as race realism goes, I don't know if it's real, I guess. But I also don't care. Because the way I've always tried to live my life is I've always tried to live the life of treating people as an individual.
Right.
So, okay, I meet a gay person. I know that there is a higher rate of AIDS in the gay community. It doesn't mean that person has AIDS. It doesn't mean that.
It doesn't mean that. They may have a higher chance of contracting the virus, but that doesn't mean they have it.
Right. And people are like, are you trying to say AIDS is bad? No, that's just an example, okay? It's an example. Maybe it wasn't a very good one. It's an example.
It's an example. There's a lot of things that can be made an example of, but that happens to be the one that comes to mind right now because that's the one that's in the news and in the media.
Yeah, that was just one I come up with the top of my head. So yeah, I had a lot to say about it. That's what do you got to that?
Okay, so talking about tech censorship,
mm-hmm.
and what I see going on today with YouTube, with Facebook, is rather frightening.
Oh yeah, it's terrifying. It's fascistic. It really actually is.
Right. I mean, let's talk about the Vox Adpocalypse thing that started with Steven Crowder and Louder with Crowder. And by the way, if you haven't watched Louder with Crowder, watch one or two of his episodes before you make a judgment. His stuff is, while hard-hitting, is meant to be funny. He's
entertaining.
Satirical to a point.
Mm-hmm.
And he does these change my mind topics that are
really good. Those are
really good, but they get censored and they get demonetized because they violate some whatever code of the YouTube community standards. But I watch them and I don't understand what code it's violating because.
If we ever get it, we'll never get monetized because of what we're discussing.
Right, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
But with Vox, particularly, they took suit against Steven Crowder to get him demonetized, to get him banned, because one person felt offended by his satirical comedy that was directed at him. Now, here's my point. When you put yourself out in the media, when you put yourself out like you and I are doing, you put yourself out there.
We're gonna get shit.
To take shit.
Yeah.
Pardon my English, pardon my French, but that is what's gonna happen. I expect at some point, if the channel takes off, that somebody's gonna make fun of me. Somebody's going to not like what I have to say, and they're going to criticize me for it.
Oh, yeah.
That is part of the game. That's part of what you do. But with the tech censorship, they're trying to use a lot of that what's the word I'm looking for? Offendedness, which I don't even think is a word.
They're trying to use their righteousness.
Take down those channels that have offended them. But they're not looking at the people that they've offended.
Yeah.
And
I was very offended by their Antifa video. I thought it was pure propaganda and bullshit.
But that doesn't mean that that doesn't necessarily give us the right to go have it taken down, because it all plays into the rights of free speech. And
I don't want to take it down.
And here's where we come into free speech and the difference between a platform and a publisher.
Yeah.
If YouTube and Facebook want to be a platform, they cannot and do not have the protections to take down those videos or demonetize those videos they don't agree with, because it is a platform. It is a place for people like Tony and I, like Steven Crowder, like Tim Pool,
and even Vox.
And Vox, and Milo Yiannopoulos, and all these people who have differing opinions to put their opinions out there. And I think that is a good thing, because it's supposed to open people up and give people a chance to see different opinions.
Yeah.
But when you try to take down those opinions that offend you or go against what you believe, you're really opening yourself up to be taken down by the same forces.
Yeah, it will always backfire, and I think one of the things to pick, because I know the arguments that they're going to use. They're going to say, well, it's a private platform, it's a private business, they can do that what they want. This is true, however, and a lot of people say conservatives are hypocrites because of the bake the cake thing. There's multiple bakeries, and I've talked about how I thought that was overblown. There's one Twitter, there's one YouTube, there's one Facebook,
and they're generally owned by the same companies, because Facebook owns Instagram.
Yeah. And it's all in Silicon Valley. It's all in San Francisco, within 50 miles of each other. And yeah, there's Gab, there's BitChute, and we're going to have presences on those channels, on those platforms, because that's what you got to do now. But they don't have the audience reach. And they sit there and say, well, build your own. Well, okay, you look at Gab. Gab is like Twitter, but it gets hit pieces written by the media. Interestingly enough, you can see where I'm going with this, that it's full of white nationalists and white supremacists, and it's not. It's full of
people that are done with Twitter.
Yeah, it's full of basic conservatives. Quite frankly, your grandpa's conservative, or your dad's conservative, that got banned off of Twitter because they probably said that something that Twitter didn't like. I mean, for an example, when I launched a YouTube channel about a year ago, and it was a political channel, my first video was about, and not getting into it, it was about the Trump-German Helsinki meeting, all that stuff.
Okay.
And I took the line that Trump was right. He needs to put pressure on Germany because Germany's getting all their energy from the pipeline from Russia. And if Russia did ever escalate, Russia can just shut off about 33% of Germany's energy. So what the hell good is Germany going to do us in a freaking war? But that's the point. That was the point he was trying to make. I made one video. I put it on Twitter once. I had my account locked for about 15 days. One video. Very interesting. I lost my train of thought. Anyways. But that was my point.
Right.
And I could put it on Gab, and I could put it on BitChute, and I did. And quite frankly, on BitChute, I got a lot more views than on YouTube. But you got to understand, it's about the size of the market, and these companies have, for lack of a better word, on a monopoly on the public square.
Yes. And just as an example, and again, I'm not criticizing because this is where the free market has led us.
Mm-hmm.
But as an example, let's talk about Disney.
Mm-hmm.
Disney owns ABC. Disney owns Marvel.
Disney owns this YouTube channel. Full disclosure.
Disney owns YouTube?
No, it was a joke. It owns us.
Oh.
It's a full disclosure, but they don't own us.
No. He was being sarcastic and trying to make a joke.
Yet. We are willing to sell out. At least I am.
Disney owns Marvel. Disney owns ABC. Disney recently bought Fox.
Yeah.
Which...
Oh, they own Star Wars.
They own this Star Wars franchises. I could go on and look at all of the sub companies.
Yeah.
That Disney is the parent company for.
Yeah.
And
they control a huge chunk of the media right now.
They control a huge chunk of the media. But on the, and all of your media channels are basically owned by one or two or three parent companies.
Yeah.
So these few parent companies control the narrative.
Yeah.
They control what's said. They control how it's said. Because as you were telling me before, you were a journalism student and you had the AP Standards book.
Yeah.
And I want you to talk about that AP Standards book, because this is what happens when you have one or two or three parent companies that own everything.
So I'm not sure if the companies owning this stuff has anything to do with it, but it does talk about how it's being said. So, the AP style book, if those of you who don't know, it's a book of how you're supposed to write a journalism article, so that, say you write for a story for the Washington Post, it has to be written in this format, so that way the New York Times can also post that article. It's about collaboration. It's not really insidious. The idea of it in itself is not really insidious. It's about collaboration. Like, I write this for it. It's mostly like I write a story for the Indianapolis Star. It becomes national news. Then the New York Times can publish that story.
Right.
And because it's the same format over and over again, it is how to use the pronouns, everything.
Right, which makes some sense in at first look, where you see a standardization of the English language.
Yeah.
However,
and this was new in the 2016, and they come out with a new one every year, so it may have changed. But 2016, a lot of things happened. I wonder why I voted for Trump. Anyways, I was flipping through the AP style book, and the term illegal immigrant cannot be used. It has to be undocumented immigrant. Now, obviously, that is extremely biased, and that's just one example. There was another thing, but stop and think about that. Every article in the mainstream has to be written with the term undocumented immigrant instead of illegal immigrant. Now, quite frankly, if you ask me, that's a bastardization of language, because it's an illegal immigrant, not an undocumented migrant.
Because they have inherently broken our law by crossing the border without going through proper channels.
Yeah.
Which we talked about on a previous
video. So, that's just one example.
But the reason I bring that up, and why I bring that up when it comes to all of these channels being owned by 2 or 3 parent companies, is, for those of you who don't know, AP stands for Associated Press.
Yeah.
And when all of the media corporations are collaborating, and they're all owned by 2 or 3 parent companies, that collaboration, while not inherently evil or inherently sadistic or inherently bad, then becomes a control on what we hear and how it is presented to us.
Yeah. Which goes into a lot of things with, fake news. It's not necessarily that it's fake news. It's presented in a way, especially with Trump, that is bent.
Biased.
Yeah.
Because let's get into the royal trip.
Okay.
While we're talking about this. Because I am not necessarily a big fan of the royal family, but I follow the royal family. Because I love the pageantry, and I love the ceremony that goes behind all of that, and the royal weddings and the state dinners, and I love seeing all of that. So I will watch the videos. And I was watching coverage, and I was flipping between Fox News and CNN, because they're on our cable network. They're they're right next to each other, and you can flip back and forth between them really easy. And while Fox News was much more conservative and talking about what was actually going on, you go into CNN, and instead of talking about the politics of what was being seen as to who was sitting next to whom and who was wearing what, which actually there's a lot of in-depth and a lot of meaning behind the seating charts and the colors that are worn and who wears what tiara. And I know that most people don't understand that.
Yeah.
But politically speaking, there is a lot of meaning behind that.
There's a lot of minutia and
Right.
subtlety going on.
Right. So instead of talking about the politics of what was going on, the actual meat of what the visit was for, which really was a state dinner. There wasn't really supposed to be any real politics going on, except for the talk about Brexit and trade negotiations. However...
And Trump saying, hey, we're willing to give you a deal again.
We're willing to give you a deal if you leave Brexit.
Yeah.
But there really couldn't be much done on that because of where they were at politically in terms of changing prime ministers.
Yeah. May resigning, all that good jazz.
Right. Whereas you watched CNN and they were talking about the dresses and the jewelry and who was wearing whom. And she's wearing this designer and this one's wearing that designer, and the facade of the whole thing, and it was very much like a critique of the Oscars and the Oscar red carpet rather than hey, the president is sitting next to the queen, which politically means something, and they were actually talking, and they looked like they were having a good time.
I do think, I may get people from Great Britain not liking this, but I kind of get the feeling the Queen kind of likes Trump.
And that's the other thing. Let's talk about that. Whether the Queen likes Trump or not.
Yeah.
CNN was reporting these great big protests and the big baby Trump blimp, and nobody wanted him there. But when you actually looked at it,
they weren't as big as they thought they were going to work.
You pulled it back, and even Fox was talking about how, they expected more people for the protest. Now, and they were saying how it was still early in the day, and that when it comes time for the state dinner, there may be more protesters, and maybe the weather had something to dampen the protest. But even Fox News admitted that, hey, we were expecting more protesters than there are here. Whereas CNN was like, the protests, if you listen to CNN, protesters were everywhere, and there were thousands of them. And that's not exactly what happened.
Yeah. I understand what you're saying. And by the way, we condemn the person who popped the Trump baby balloon. Do not destroy other people's private property. Did you hear about that?
I did not hear that it got popped.
Yeah, some Trump supporter lady popped the baby balloon.
Oh, whether you support Trump or don't support Trump, please don't go wrecking other people's private property.
Yeah. But yeah, going back to the media, it was interesting to watch, and how do I want to word this? I'd really don't want to get into Sadiq Khan stuff again. But yeah, that guy. But no, going back to the tech censorship, it does seem the establishment and legacy media are trying desperately to get control of the narrative again.
Right.
Because they have lost control of the narrative. And quite frankly, having seen them and how they operate and how they work, they needed to lose control of the narrative. And quite frankly, they deserve to lose control of the narrative. Especially, I mean,
Well, I'm not sure that anybody deserves to have control of any narrative.
Yeah.
I would like to see a news outlet that, and this is completely idealistic on my part, and I know it, but who, what, where, when, how, and why.
Yeah. I mean, that's who,
what, where, when, why, and how. The 5 W's and your 1 H. That's what I was taught in school.
Yeah.
And if we could get back to that...
I don't think we were ever really there, to tell you the truth. But...
like I said, idealistic of me.
Yeah.
If we could get to that, this is what happened. This is who was involved. This is where it was. This is when it happened. This is why it happened. And this is how it happened.
Yeah.
Give us the news. Give people the news. Give people what's happening and let them make their own decisions. There shouldn't necessarily be a narrative.
Yeah. And one thing people do need to understand, when even CNN, when they just concentrate on that, they do a fairly good job. It's the analysis that is just god awful.
Well, you could say the same about Fox.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Fox does a great job of, when they are reporting the news. But then you get your commentators and you get your opinion, your opinion shows. And when they say, hey, this, I am, just off the top of my head, this is Sean Hannity and this is my opinion show, you should know
that
you're getting an opinion and you should not expect the news.
Yeah.
Or anywhere near, you know you're getting a biased edge on what's going on.
Yeah. And we do need to quickly talk about, because I am gonna say CNN does need to burn and crash because of what they did a couple years ago, after the Trump tweeted out that wrestling video.
Oh my gosh, that was so funny.
Yeah, it was funny when it was, but they found the person who made the video, and I'm not even really sure they really got the person who made the video, or they just found the moderator from the forum it originated from.
I think that's what happened, is they found the moderator of the forum where the video was originally posted.
Yeah. And they basically said, I mean, if you haven't read their post about it, my God, very threatening. Basically, we know who you are, and if you misbehave again, we're going to come after you. Basically what they said. So, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, CNN has no credibility. And then you couple that with what happened a couple weeks ago with, I believe, was it the Daily Beast? I believe it was the Daily Beast that doxed the person who made the Pelosi video.
Oh, right.
And
I'm not sure who that was, but I know what you're talking about.
And it's kind of like, videos like that are made all the time on the internet. You can find tons of anti-Trump videos right now if you really wanted to. I don't know why you would. I mean, he's a god. Why would you blaspheme a god? But
if you could see the look I was giving him right now.
But it's, and that just goes into them really trying to control the narrative. They want control back again, and it's very, and as for me, kind of as a conservative, I've seen this, and maybe people who are watching that are conservative, we've known this for decades, and it kind of just seems that, no offense, that you guys are just now catching up to what's going on. Like, I hate to be mean about it, but it's like, oh, the media's biased and it's tearing us apart. Yeah. So anyways, what else do I want to say about that? So no, I think Tim Pool is 100% correct when he talks about what's going on, because I've seen a bit of that myself. I completely condemn tech censorship. It's very fascistic. It's funny seeing all these people scream about Trump being a fascist day and night, and yet they're applauding these corporations shutting down little people. Like, do you guys not know what fascism actually is? It's when the government and the corporations get together to screw everyone over. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but I mean that's what. Oh God.
Right.
Fascism is very bad and it's very corrupt. In a lot of ways, it's more corrupt than communism. Yeah. That's all I got to say about the issue.
That's pretty much what I have to say. I kind of touched on where I wanted to go with tech censorship and with the demonetization of videos that don't agree with what the accepted narrative is.
Yeah.
Which I think is an issue, because what it does is it pulls out the opposing viewpoints, the opposing opinions.
Yeah, and
you, to have a dialogue, you have to have
I mean,
opposition.
If the internet was around during the 1800s, they'd be pulling evolution videos off. You know?
Right.
They'd be pulling evolution videos off. They'd be, or, you know, even before then, they'd be pulling Galileo's videos off. They'd be, you know, what is the established consensus right now may not be the established consensus of tomorrow. And it's important for people to hear people's opinions. I mean,
right.
Or opinions, or, I mean, or, you know, just being kind of humorous, you know. Dinosaurs having feathers. They're pretty sure dinosaurs had feathers now, at least from the Jurassic period on.
Right.
Although, you know, hashtag not my T-Rex. That's not my T-Rex, damn it.
The idea, though, that you're trying to say,
yeah.
and where I would go with that is, without that opposing view, there is no discussion, there is no movement forward, there is no change.
Yeah.
In the popular opinion. You don't get from, like you said, you don't know what the view is going to be 10 years from now, or what the discussion is going to be 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now.
Yeah, there's no way to know.
There's no way to know. But without that, and because of that, I think that's why we still need these conversations and this back and forth with opposing opinions, because that's how you learn.
Yeah.
And that's how you make discoveries, and that's how you get to where you are in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years.
Yeah. Because if your opinions aren't, if not completely changing, at least evolving from year to year, day to day, you're doing it wrong. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I mean, my basic opinions haven't changed that much, but the reasoning behind them and my willingness to listen to other opinions and to concede that maybe the other person may have a point is very different than what it was just 10 years ago.
It was very different from what it was 2 years ago.
Me?
Yes.
No.
No, in your, where you stand on being able to willingly listen to somebody else's opinion and concede that, okay, you might have a point, is different from where it was 2 years ago.
I might be able to see that. But I don't know. I've always thought I was, at least recently, I've considered myself fairly reasonable. Now, 10 years ago, yeah, I was kind of a prick. I was very convinced I was right. But I was young.
I say that, and I will tell you to go reference video 1 regarding the night we met.
The night we met. But that was just a joke.
But still.
And I'd make that joke today. You know I would.
I know you would. But I think on the opposite side of that, you'd also be willing to admit that, hey, I may have overstepped here.
I don't know about that.
We're talking, aren't we?
Yeah, but I don't know if I overstepped. I mean, it was a funny joke.
Whatever.
I mean, it's a joke.
The idea, though, is, and I bring that up, not only do our opinions change and do our viewpoints change, but we really need to be able to be willing to listen to other people so that we can get to know them.
That's true. All right.
And that
is why tech censorship is so dangerous.
Yes.
Because all that's going to create is the other. It's going to be the establishment and then the other. And you may think you're never going to be the other, but you will be.
And it creates an echo chamber of you hear what you want to hear because that's what you're looking to hear and that's what you're putting out there.
I also want to add that Carlos Maza is a coward. If he was really that offended by what Crowder said, he should have talked to him personally.
Oh, the Vox guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He should have talked to them personally and said, look, we may disagree, but could you back off of the gay jokes? And I think if he would have done that, Crowder would have. I really do.
Yeah.
Heck, Crowder may have even apologized.
Maybe. I mean, you do have to consider.
I don't know. I don't know the guy, so.
Well, I mean, his Twitter handle is
Gay Wonk.
Gay Wonk.
And he's made fun of himself for it.
So, really apologizing for making gay jokes on somebody whose Twitter handle is Gay Wonk is.
Like, what do you expect, dude?
Right.
What
did you expect when you put yourself out there with that kind of a Twitter handle?
Yeah. I mean, that just goes into, 10 years ago, the media wouldn't have supported gay rights like it is. And now it's kind of a facade. They put up these rainbow things, and it's like, oh, we're all inclusive. And it's like, you're doing that because it's what is acceptable right now. In 10 years, opinion might change again. And then you'd just be doing the same thing. And all that Carlos Maza is doing, he's using socialistic tactics, communist tactics. He worked for Media Matters. That's a horrible organization. He's using his identity as a shield. Yeah, it's very cowardly. And, that's all I have to say about it.
I have honestly no opinion. Because there are a lot of things about me that can be said that are the same. And
what do you mean by that?
Well, I was bullied as a kid.
Yeah.
And I was abused as a kid. And I have a lot of health issues.
Yeah.
And a lot of people say that I can use that as a shield if I wanted to. And that if I wanted to really, cause issues, I could use that, weaponize that. I choose not to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's good on you. That's part of the reason why I listen to you is you don't weaponize that. Because, if you weaponize it, I want to have any respect for you.
Right. And I think that I think this gets into our next topic for the next video.
Oh, yeah. We'll talk about healthcare.
Where we're going to talk about healthcare. But I think talking about who I am and what I've gone through that has made me the way I am is different than expecting somebody to respect me because of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Alrighty. That's all I got to say on the issue.
That's all I have to say on the issue.
Like, comment, subscribe. The engagement really, really does help, guys.
On any of the YouTube
Videos.
producers that you watch, or creators. Also, if you have questions, if you have comments, if you have topic suggestions, put them in the comment section below.
Yeah. I'm also going to go ahead, I meant to mention this in the other videos, but I'm going to go ahead and link my Teespring store for my t-shirts.
Okay.
So, if you want to buy one of my shirts, please do. All right.
Okay. We will see you later.
Yep. Bye, everyone.